Okay, so what you are looking at here might just be the most, let's say, thoroughly used Yaris GR on the road. Has it been carefully run in? No. Is it driven purely politely around town? No. From day one, this little white nugget has been genuinely pushed to the limit and actually raced, with a few mishaps along the way, but we'll get to those in a second. Which then begs the question, after thousands of very aggressive kilometres, is the Yaris GR still worthy of the hype? And after this kind of treatment, what actually does go wrong with them when they've been driven up to and quite often beyond their limits? Let's find out. Now, before we get into this, there's something quite special about this particular Yaris GR. See, if this is your first ReDriven video, we have a resident mechanic, Jim. He'll be taking you through everything that mechanically can go wrong with these later in the video. But this is his personal car. It's not his road-going daily driver car. It's actually his race car. It is still registered and it still does get driven on the road. Actually, more often than not, by me more than him. But this actual car has recently won the state and national super sprint championships for its class. Now back to the Yaris GR in general. Look, we're thinking that chances are if you're watching this video, you're a Yaris GR fan and you probably know all the ins and outs. But just in case you've bumped your head and forgotten, how about a quick overview? Basically, the GR is the high-performance variant of the humble Yaris, developed by Toyota's motorsport division, Gazoo Racing. Hence, GR. However, the GR differs from the commuter car in every way short of the mirrors, the head and taillights, and the antenna. This is thanks to the GR being a homologation special. Now, what that basically means is that for Toyota to compete in certain race and rally events, they had to make a whole bunch of road-going versions of the competition car. This. And to throw down those rally stages, it features a turbocharged 1.6-litre 3-cylinder engine bolted to a 6-speed manual transmission, sending power to all four wheels via a sophisticated all-wheel drive system. Now, obviously, there's a whole host of other specific go-fast stuff like the performance-tuned suspension and huge brakes, and the car was developed in conjunction with Toyota's World Rally team and with the help of rally god Tommi Mäkinen. But even within this very niche model, there are variants. See, this is the base spec car. Actually, it was one of the very first to land in Australia, but a few months later, after this was released, Toyota announced the Rally Edition, which featured a whole bunch of extras and features and stuff like that, but we'll take you through them in a second. But internationally, there have been variants like the GR Yaris RS, which is a front-wheel drive, naturally aspirated version with a CVT, yuck, through to the GRMN circuit package, which is about as hardcore as a Yaris can get from the factory. Now, for all the specific details and so much more on the Yaris GR, jump on ReDriven.com and check out our awesome and completely free ReDriven cheat sheet. Now, let's talk looks for a second, because I feel that the Yaris GR is almost like the ultimate litmus test to see if you're a real car person or not. For like us car people, this thing just ticks all of the boxes. You've got pumped arches, you've got these angry headlights, you've got actual vents that do things. It's not just some cut off bit of plastic. The whole body being so wide and short and nuggety, this thing for us is exquisite. But the thing is, talk to my partner, who isn't a car person, and it's a big fat no. In fact, I've actually shown this car to many of my non-car friends or non-car people friends, and they've actually said it's ugly. Obviously, they're all dead to me now, but come on, surely I'm not alone here. This has to be one of the hottest cars on our roads, especially when it's been lowered like this on these gorgeous rims and with the racing livery and a few battle scars. Ah, I love it. Now guys, we just have to pay some bills for a second. If that bothers you and you hate saving money, just skip ahead about 30 seconds. First up, a massive thank you to our finance partner, Driver. Guys, if you need help financing your next car, go to Driver, because the whole thing can be done online so simply. You can get pre-approval in literally just minutes, and there are no hidden fees. Head to the link down there to get started. And next up, the best wipers we have ever used, WIPERTECH. Easy to order, easy to install, they fit perfectly. And if you order them from the link down there, you're gonna get 15% off and get express shipping for free. Now inside, if you look really closely, you'll notice that this particular car is missing a couple of things, like half the interior. In fact, by removing the rear seats and all the rear trim, swapping the battery out for a lighter item and putting this Sparco race seat in, it saved over 50 kilos. Now look, design-wise, for what these cars cost, you might be expecting a bit more of a luxurious interior, but look at it this way. I feel like this car is continuing the tradition on of like the Mitsubishi Lancer Evolution and Subaru STI, where it's like a kind of budget-conscious little hot hatch, basically. So the interior shows that there's nothing really fancy going on at all. There's a bit of like Alcantara here and there, but yeah, it does feel like a budget hatch. Now look, ergonomics wise, when it's got the standard seats in it, I personally felt like you sat way too high. Obviously it might be a height specific thing. Also, a lot of people have complained about the gap between the bottom of the mirror and the top of the screen, that's just basically not a big enough gap and it can kind of stuff up your vision out the front. There are kits that can lift the mirror up, which will help. With this Sparco seat, the driving position is now absolutely superb. So either get yourself some Sparcos or maybe like a seat lowering kit. The legalities of those are going to vary depending on where you're watching this from, but yeah, standard, you sit too high. Also, just on the standard seats, they are incredibly comfortable, really supportive, and because of the material you used, you don't really slide around anywhere. So they sit too high, but at least they're comfy. Now look, wear and tear wise, this car has had a hell of a life, but wear and tear is still pretty good. There are a few little bits of wear and tear, like the Alcantara on the armrest here is already starting to go a little bit flat, but all the texture on the steering wheel is good. Even the gear knob, the texture is good here, or the door cards are good. Honestly, it's still a pretty new car. Most of these are going to be in good shape, really heavily used ones. I suppose that's about the only wear and tear up the front. Now, practicality-wise, up front, you've got some pretty decent-sized door bins. You've got a spot down here that is specifically designed for Jim's kids to leave their dad a little note, so make sure your Yaris you're looking at has that. You've got a spot perfectly sized for your phone there. Actually, I think that's a wireless charging port on some of these. Wireless charging bay, I suppose. You've got a bookshelf just here. You've got a pretty okay sized glove box. 2 cup holders here, little storage bin there. I think that's it. There's nowhere for sunglasses up there. There's nothing under the seats. There's nothing really down here. Yeah, that's it for practicality up front. Now in the back seat, or like what used to be the back seat, I'm exactly 18 centimeters taller than Yaris Hilton. This is in my driving position, and when it had a back seat, it actually wasn't too bad. Like, you know, there wasn't a whole lot of leg room, and the headroom used to be a bit of a nightmare because you used to scrub your head up against that because of the profile of the roof. But like, it wasn't great. But you know, if you're a kid or an amputee, super comfy. For a normal size adult like myself, acceptable. Now, practicality in the back seat, when it has an interior, look, yes, it's supposed to be a practical hatch, but think of it more like a half-sized Japanese-made Porsche 911 Turbo. You can use the back seat for practicality and putting stuff places, but not really. Now, as far as wear and tear in the back seat of this particular car goes, pretty good. Like, none of the paint is scratched. The insides of the rear panels there are in pretty good shape. The harness is in good nick as well. Yeah, wear and tear back here, good. Now, practicality in the boot, for like the size of this car, is actually pretty good. Obviously, this car doesn't have an interior anymore, but when it did have an interior, I know from experience that with the seats down and when the strut brace holding the harness on isn't fitted, you can fit a full-sized 4-piece drum kit in the back. So for like what this car is and the size of it, practicality is pretty decent. Now, as far as the tech goes, it's pretty good news here. You do get Apple CarPlay and Android Auto as standard, but it isn't wireless yet. That's probably coming in the update. The screen is, I suppose, decent enough, and you get a bunch of shortcut buttons as well as being able to touch the screen. And the 8-speaker stereo, it's okay. It's all right. You're not really going to listen to the stereo much. You're going to be listening to your passengers screaming. Plus, you get all the expected stuff like dual zone climate control, a rear view camera, parking sensors, and being a true performance car, selectable drive modes, and we'll get to them more soon. But if you spec up to a rally, you'll also get Torsen front and rear limited slip diffs, 18-inch forged aluminium BBS wheels with circuit-tuned suspension, red interior contrasting stitching, and red painted brake calipers with the GR logo. But this particular car, it does have a few very tasty additions. Firstly, suspension is taken care of thanks to MCA coilovers. The wheels are Wedsport TC105s, tyres are Yokohama A050s, and engine-wise, it's actually pretty stock short of the intake and the exhaust. But the biggest difference has been made by fitting a limited slip diff to the back. The front is still open, but we'll talk about what effect this has had in more detail in a moment. Now, look, safety-wise, look, guys, this is a car from 2020. It is filled to the brim with safety equipment. hence the 5-star NCAP safety rating. But to take you through the safety features that it does have, or that you can expect, it seems only appropriate that we do this next bit like a rally co-driver.
After 3 left over crest, you will get 6 airbags, ABS, traction control and stability control. Into 4 right, don't cut. Into the full suite of active safety tech like lane keep assist, autonomous emergency braking with pedestrian and cyclist detection, blind spot monitoring, adaptive cruise control and road sign recognition. And Sebastian, that's the stage win.
Now for the full details on all the safety, the features, all the tech, jump on ReDriven.com, check out the cheat sheet. Okay, so what is a Yaris GR like to drive after thousands of kilometres of racing? Well, if you listen really, really carefully, you might just be able to hear the aftermarket exhaust system. But look, besides that, this thing is still bloody lovely to drive. And this is the brilliant thing about the Yaris GR. Look, we all know it's an incredible performance car, but it's still perfect at just being a Yaris. Like, it's easy to park and it's small, so like in narrow streets or even driveways, it's a complete breeze. Even when it's lowered like this, it still has like a decent amount of ground clearance. So like speed bumps and potholes are never a concern. And then because of the power and torque, like overtaking is a breeze. And like, if you just want to have a little burst of fun, it's just like a right foot flex away. It's awesome. And then because like the steering and the shift feel and even like the pedal weight, they're also perfectly calibrated. It's so much fun to drive all of the time. Now the race tuned suspension in this one is understandably very, very firm because it's quite literally tuned for circuit use. But even then, it's never like crashy or harsh at all. Actually, you know what? When it's set to its softest settings, around town, it makes for a brilliant daily driver. It actually gives the car, it's going to sound a bit wanky, but kind of even more confidence and compliance than the standard suspension. But some of the race car modifications aren't so great as a daily driver. Like the exhaust is bloody loud. And because we've taken basically half the interior out of it, it's become like a little metallic echo chamber. It feels like you're living in like a speaker box made of metal. And then you've got these tires. Now the weather today, it's been raining constantly, it's pretty bloody cold, and it feels like these tires might be made out of like wet soap. But you know what, like even after a lifetime spent on racetracks being driven incredibly hard, there are no rattles, there's no squeaks, there's no weird noises. The entire car, it still feels tight, like it's been chiseled from a block of granite. It is so impressive. Like it feels, honestly, it feels genuinely special. Like its core DNA has been designed purely to give you like the ultimate driving experience. But like, what's this car like at the serious stuff, like the real performance driving? Well, you know what? How about we let the guy that has taken this thing to win multiple championships explain what the serious driving is like. It's going to be Jim that owns and races the car, but we'll get to that bit in a second. So you know what happens when a company makes a bespoke performance car in limited numbers? The prices go up. These, brand new, they had like an introductory price, it was $39,950, but these days, even the most affordable examples are asking over $45,000. Even when it comes to the bells and whistles rally edition, which was asking around about $56,200 brand new, most on the used market are asking way more than that. Now, that might seem like a lot of cash for what is basically a small Toyota hatchback, granted a fast one, but here's the thing. This exact car is only a couple of seconds slower around the Pheasantwood circuit here in New South Wales than a Porsche GT2 RS. That thing is asking around about $750,000. So it equates to like 350 grand per second. Is it worth it? Like, you can't even fit kids in the back of that. I don't know. What do you think? Now, fuel-wise, even though this is a very serious performance car, it is a 1.6 litre and a 3-cylinder turbo. So even when sort of being driven in anger, it's still pretty fuel efficient. Not that anyone buying a Yaris GR cares about fuel efficiency. Plus, guys, it's a Toyota and it shares plenty of its mechanical components with other Toyota and Lexus models. So the support network is huge. And if you do need any spare parts, chances are they're going to be affordable, as will the labour to fix them and maintain it. And these are still covered by a 5-year warranty. So if anything were to go wrong, chances are Toyota will fix it anyway, unless it's been modified like this. In that case, it's a bit of a case-by-case situation. Okay, so what goes wrong with the Yaris GR? Let's start with the exterior. First of all, let's say you maybe enter a fast off-camber left-hand corner, maybe a little bit too hot, and then you like lift off the gas to get the car to tighten up a bit, and then it starts to kind of maybe possibly hypothetically over-rotate. And let's say hypothetically that happens at Mount Panorama at Bathurst, where there's concrete walls either side. What the car can do is sometimes meet that concrete wall with a lot of enthusiasm, and this ends up happening. Actually guys, in all seriousness, this is a high performance car. It's pretty affordable, so many of them, let's say, are introduced to the scenery kind of quite often. So if you are in the market for one, it is critical to check the car out for any signs of accident damage or dodgy repair work, kind of like cable ties holding the bumper together, or maybe these, you know, just subtle differences in panel gaps and maybe some slight dents and stuff like that. Actually guys, there is a whole bunch of other stuff that you do need to check out when you're buying really any used car, especially a performance car. So make sure you go and watch our ultimate used car buyer's guide before you hand over your hard-earned cash. But look, as far as any like common faults or issues with the exterior go, no, none really. And even if there were, like Toyota are going to fix them under warranty anyway. And the same can be said for the interior. Like so far, there are no commonly reported faults with the interior. But mechanically, what goes wrong? Well, look, I can't tell you because I'm not a qualified mechanic. But Jim, that owns this very car, he certainly is.
So personally, I have driven the absolute arse off the one I own, and it is 90% of its use has been on track, and it has been absolutely flawless. Although my ownership experience isn't necessarily, you know, the same as everybody, so I did go on a very deep dive, and I managed to get on the inside with some Toyota people fairly high up. And there are a couple of things. One of which is the turbo oil drain. That does tend to crack, and we've all seen that on the social media stuff as well. A lot of people are experiencing that with modified exhaust as well. Sometimes it's being covered by warranty, other times not. Another common problem is the second gear just popping out back into neutral. Again, the earlier models seem to be affected more so, and there was a whole bunch of them that were covered by warranty, and there was some whole bunch of different theories as to what was causing it, detent issues or actually synchros and selector problems internally. What's happening now though, Toyota are rejecting most of those claims because the ones that were done early in warranty, those gearboxes were sent back to Japan and they were assessed, and now the opinion of Toyota is that the problem is being caused by the ownership and the way it's being driven, which is hugely controversial. So if you have one that's jumping out of second gear, good luck. And speaking of operator error, if you've looked at anything online about these things, you would have seen the very well documented catastrophic engine failure. That was in fact caused by someone misshifting and revving the thing to, I don't know, 9,000 RPM, which did cause a catastrophic engine failure. But typically, that's about the only way you can do it in one of these. A couple of other minor things that were fixed in the early days with software updates, that is the radar and adaptive cruise control faults. There was also an oil pressure abnormality that was another software update, and another one relating to an overboost scenario, which was much worse in hot weather, but that's all been sorted out with post-sale software updates. So yeah, basically after trawling endlessly through Toyota technical service bulletins, there really isn't that much to tell you. Overall, generally speaking, they are very reliable. So yeah, now what's it like to drive on the limit? So I've driven this thing mostly on the track and in a whole bunch of different evolutions, from virtually standard to a few basic mods, and they are basically very minor engine mods, coilovers and sticky tyres. Now, all the way through, regardless of what stage of modifications it was at, the car itself is incredibly forgiving. You can go in a long corner, you can go from understeer to oversteer to understeer to oversteer multiple times, completely predictably, giggling like a schoolgirl the whole time. It's hilarious and very rewarding. It's definitely a case of, it's not necessarily all the power that makes a difference, because the biggest gains I've had in this thing is all about traction. Sticky tyres are great, but the rear LSD has probably been the biggest game changer in terms of lap times. So just on the rear diff, on a lap typically that's about a minute long, just the diff alone with no other mods, it's about a 2-second per lap improvement, thusly proving that horsepower isn't the only way to go faster. So yeah, regardless of what Adam's opinion is at the end of this video, personally I think yes, you should buy one because they're bloody great fun.
Okay, so should you buy one? This may surprise a few of you, but we're only going to give it a maybe. See, look, there's no denying that the Yaris GR is an incredibly special car. It's thrilling to drive as it is capable of physics-bending feats of performance, but the issue that the little Toyota has more to do with who buys it than the car itself. See, if these were as readily available as, say, like a standard Yaris or even a Corolla, yeah, sure, whoever you are, go and buy one. But the problem is, because they are so limited, quite often the people that deserve to buy them, or drive them even, they miss out. We're talking about the people that will actually take the Yaris to track days, or will spend every possible moment on some remote, deserted, winding road, enjoying the car's immense levels of engineering, embracing what this car is all about. See, the problem is we see these things being used as some kind of a flex, being driven up like cafe and club streets as some kind of way of showing off. Obviously, express yourself however you want, and it's not for us to tell you how to spend your money. But buying a Yaris GR and not driving it seriously or not taking it to the track is a bit like buying a meal at a Gordon Ramsay restaurant, taking a photo of it for your socials, and then not eating it. What makes it truly special is clearly totally lost on you, so how about leaving it for those that will appreciate it properly? Basically, don't be a wanker. Take this to the track and drive it in the way that it was intended. So after all of that, would you buy one of these, or would you buy one of the competition? I don't really know what its exact competition would be, maybe a GR Corolla. Let us know in the comments. See you next time. There's something a bit special about this particular? Jesus, okay. I feel like the Yaris GR is almost like the ultimate Actually, guys, in all seriousness, this is a high performance car. That's what it is. Here you go.